Hi, I'm Dan Rosenstark with MIDI Designer, and in this video I'm going to show you a general walkthrough of MIDI Designer. We're going to cover some basic and some advanced features to give you an idea of what MIDI Designer can do. Now, my setup here, if I go into More and Config and Connections, you can see that I've got a Wi-Fi connection already, and that's connected to some mappings that I've already done in Ableton Live that we're going to use for this demo. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some buttons and I'm going to modify their properties. So I go into More, Design, and here I can tap anywhere on the page and I get to add a control. I can add buttons, knobs, sliders, crossfaders, XYs, and decorative types like label, multi-line label, etc. So I go into Button and I'm going to add 4 of these, and I'm going to take the first one and double tap it to get its properties, and I'm going to change its name from its automatic name to Start, and I'm going to change its subtype from Toggle to Momentary. Now I'm going to lock the Design Properties panel in place by pressing the red LED, and this means that this is locked. It won't close as I move between controls. So I do Apply Now, and now for button 2, this is already up. The Design Properties panel is already up and looking at the right thing. Change this to Momentary as well. Apply Now, go back. I'm going to change the name of this second one to Stop. Now I'm going to go into the third button, and I'm going to change its properties. In Advanced, I'm going to hide it in Performance mode. Same thing with the fourth one, hide it in Performance. Now when I exit Design mode, these 2 buttons will disappear. So they've disappeared because I'm out of Design mode, and now I've got 2 buttons, and these are already mapped up in Ableton Live. So my start and my stop are working. I've showed you how to create some buttons and how to modify some properties. And now we're going to go further ahead and we're going to create some knobs. So I go into More, enter Design mode. Again, tap anywhere here. I'm going to create 4 knobs. The first one is going to be called Wet. And the second one is going to be called Rate, because they are controlling a tremolo effect. So that's the wet volume of the tremolo effect and the rate of the tremolo effect. And the third knob, I'm going to delete it. And the fourth knob, I'm also going to delete. And now, let's see if these are mapped up correctly. So I've got my tremolo effect wired up. Now I'm going to change one thing in the properties to show how easy this is to do in MIDI Designer. I'm going to go into the design properties of Rate, and I know that there are 9 steps from the top to the bottom of the tremolo rate knob that I'm mapping to. So I go into number of ticks here, and I'm going to change the number of ticks, which are the number of steps from top to bottom, to 9. Tap on Apply, and I'm also going to change the display minimum maximum, so it goes from 2 to 10. So we go from 2 to 10 here, and now if you look at the rate knob, you can see it goes from 2 to 10. If that LED color isn't too visible, I'm just going to change the LED properties for the entire page by double tapping on the page properties and just sliding this LED color along. There it is. That's a much more visible LED color, which I want to work with. We could also use a random LED color. Lots of ways to go. So now this is working. And now if we want to further modify those steps so that we can actually see values in text, we can use name ticks in MIDI Designer. So I go into more design mode and double tap on the rate knob, and I go into the advanced tab and I select use name ticks. It's going to convert my ticks, and here are the name ticks, and here I can put in the MIDI value, the display value, and the text value. So that's pretty cool. So here I'm going to put minimum in the minimum value, and in the max value I'm going to call it maximum. And now I exit out of design mode. So those are some of the properties that we can modify in the knobs. And now we're going to talk about interactions between controls. So I'm going to create a super control for these knobs that's going to spin up both knobs at once. So it will give us another way to use this effect. So I go into more design, and actually instead of a knob I'm going to use a crossfader, which is a sideways slider. And I'm going to size it up here, and I'm going to go into relationships and make it a super control, and its subcontrols are wet and rate. So now you can see that this knob, or this crossfader, is controlling both of these knobs at once. So that's one interesting effect with tremolo. The way the wet volume comes up, the rate increases. Another way to go is that the wet volume comes up and then the rate increases. So we can also do that pretty easily in MIDI Designer. So I go into more design, double tap on the tremolo super control here, and go into its options as super, and I'm going to make the subcontrols sequential. So I just tap on the sequential knob here, exit out of design mode, and now you can see the first one spins up and then the second one spins up. So first one, second one. So that's pretty cool. That gives a totally different effect. So that's a pretty cool introduction to what you can do with super controls and drawing relationships between controls. There's a lot of variability there. You can chain super controls and subcontrols in many different ways, and there are many parameters to adjust to get a lot of flexibility. The third thing that I'm going to show is I'm going to create some buttons and show how those work with super controls as well, and adjust some other properties. So I go back into more, go into design, and I'm going to tap here, and I'm going to create a single button. And this button, I double tap it, and I go into its properties, and I'm just going to hide the label, and I go into its MIDI properties. The main power of MIDI Designer for a lot of people is the number of different message types that we support. So if I go into message type here, I see control change, node on, node off, NERPINs, 7-bit, 14-bit, program change, bank change, sysx, and all of these are bidirectional. So that's for you to use. In this particular example, we're going to use node on, node off, tap apply, and now I'm going to change the note. This is channel 1, and I'm going to try to get to a C3 here. Yeah, there it is, 48, which is a C3. Tap apply. Now get out of design mode. So that's working, and now I'm going to use make similar to make 4 more of these, and the interesting thing is they will get incremented to a unique MIDI note number. So I go into more design, double tap this button, go into actions, and I'm going to make similar 4 times. And now I've got a chromatic scale starting on C3. All right, and now I want to make these unique. I'd like to make a monophonic synth from MIDI Designer, and I don't want to alter my synth in any way. So the way to do that is I go into More, Design, and I'm just going to add a knob here. And this knob is going to be a super control for all of these buttons. So I'm going to go into Properties, hide its label again, Relationships, super control, and its subcontrols are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is how we create radio buttons, or what we call button groups in MIDI Designer. The buttons are basically exclusive. So now, and there are a whole bunch of options around button groups, and another cool effect of button groups is that the knob also controls the button group. And you should definitely check out the video on Bounce Back for button groups for more options, really interesting stuff that our users are using in pretty cool ways. And now we're just going to change this piano keyboard so that it looks more like a piano keyboard. So I go into More and Design Mode, and I double tap on the first one, go into its properties and display options. And now I'm going to lock this dialog box or the property panel in place. And this first one is going to be a piano key C. Piano key C. Second one is going to be a piano key D. Third one, whoops. The second one is going to be a sharp. Third one is going to be a piano key D. Fourth one is a sharp again. And the next one is a piano key E, which is a B, same thing. And now I can take these and size them up correctly. And I'll move my knob over too so that it looks right there. And now, so that's been a quick introduction to MIDI Designer and some of what it's capable of. We saw how to create some controls, how to modify their properties. We saw some of the advanced properties that controls have, and we also saw super controls and subcontrols and the interaction between those and the MIDI message types that MIDI Designer supports. The app is pretty deep. There's a lot of help out there, a lot of answers you can Google for, or you can ask us directly. Thanks for your questions, thanks for your feedback, and thanks for watching this video and for checking out MIDI Designer.